I have to do this, Sam said as the breach ship shook around him. I am doing this. This is something that is happening of my own choice. He looked at the mapping console. The readout was empty. I am doing this. He maneuvered steering sticks and the mapping console didn't change. Orbit, you still online? I'm here, Sam. You're okay, the AI replied through his earcom. Why is it shaking? The ship shouldn't shake. I thought we had gravlock. We did, at least until we crossed the event horizon. You see the map? There's nothing out there. Sam stared at the blank void of the map. There's nothing out there. Why isn't there anything? Shit. Why are we shaking? Calm down, Sam. We're all right. We are just in free fall and fully inside the rift storm. Sam shut his eyes for a moment, feeling the whirring of his breath. All right. You're right. Yes. We got this. Sam opened his eyes, looking over the map. Orbit, can you bring up what it looks like outside on the screen? Orbit complied, altering the screen from its mapping layout to the current visuals. Sam's mouth opened as he watched a torrent of light and gaseous material flow over the outer skin of the craft. He laughed. It's like a trippy purple soup. It's beautiful. Orbit appeared in his purple schoolboy attire, holographically projected beside Sam. I like it. My favorite colors. What you think, Orbit? He turned and looked at the hologram. This a one-way ticket? Orbit turned his head and looked at Sam, shrugging. No idea yet. We're not through the storm yet. Sam looked back toward the screen, nodding slightly. At least it's a good one to watch. You recording this? Everything is on record, Sam. Standard exploratory protocols. Sam looked over at the graphical outputs. You're on top of these, yeah? You said we're all good? The Fubarian is happy back there. Orbit nodded. Yeah. Energy absorption is as predicted. It's feeding happily. No purple lesions. Sam relaxed in his seat, staring out at the storm. We're doing this. This is my path. We got this. We got this, Sam, Orbit replied. It was over an hour later when the storm broke. The craft rocketed out through the other side, and immediately sirens erupted in the cabin. What the hell, Orbit? Proximity warnings. It's all right, Sam. I got gravlocks and am correcting. Sam looked over at the mapping screen. 2 unending planes stretched out on the top and bottom of the map. What am I looking at? We're in something. Between 2 parallel constructs of some sort. We going to impact? No, they are several thousand kilometers apart. There are energy arcs. Timed, it seems. Calculating. I am able to dodge. Sam tapped the screen, flipping it back to the outside view. A massive bolt of electrical energy sparked across the massive gap. You able to get a reading of where we are? No, only able to gravlock on the 2 surfaces. No view of the stars. Sam clicked back over to the map. He zoomed in on the perceived surface beneath them. You able to make out what they are made of? Unknown. Probably metals of some sort given the conductive properties. Safe to land? Sam asked. Unknown. Orbit replied. Sam looked with the scanner, trying to find anything of interest. It's all flat. You able to pick up anything I'm missing? I'm seeing the same, uncannily smooth. Wait. Orbit paused. There is a gap, wide enough for the ship to go in. What do you think? Sam zoomed in on the crevasse. How long is that? I can't see the end of it. It goes from horizon to horizon, over 100,000 kilometers. Well, that's something then. Let's go down and explore. Sam took the controls and piloted down toward the chasm. The ship veered downward, and then zoomed across the glossy flat surface of the plane. As he approached the gap, he slowed down, eventually stopping in a hover directly over the drop. You picking up anything at all? Sam asked. Nothing. Only static, caused by the lightning. You been hailing? Continuously, Orbit replied. All right, I guess we go down then. You have controls, Sam. Sam nodded and started easing the breach craft down into the chasm. He looked at the mapper. The walls were several hundred meters away on each side, and just as smooth as the surface. Alrighty. Going down. The walls rose endlessly past them, only visible on the grav mapper. After several minutes, Orbit spoke up. I have something. Bringing it up. On the viewer, Orbit changed the map to visual output, displaying a seeming spark gap. What is that? How big is it? It a spark plug or something? Sam asked. It's large. It could be Unknown at present. Maybe part of the circuits building up the lightning on the surface, or whatever that was up there. Is there anywhere to land? Sam asked. Both walls are graved down. You can land on whatever you declare a floor, it seems. Orbit replied. Sam shrugged and piloted toward the spark plug. He looked over the display, noticing numerous spiky outcroppings. What are those? Unknown as well. The firmament here has holes as well. Switching back over to the mapper to ease landing, Sam eyed the changeover, noting the outcroppings and drop-offs. He honed in on a suitable clearing and hovered over it. You good for landing? Go for it, Orbit replied. Sam increased his breathing volume and lowered the ship down to the ground. The slick steel hull thrummed as it skidded into place on the surface. East enough. Are we down? We're down and sitting. Sam's body relaxed as the tension vanished. Muscles he didn't know he was flexing calmed, and he slumped in his pilot chair. Wow, I didn't even realize how stressed I was. Orbit laughed. Yeah, you were freaking out a few times there. So, any idea where we are? None at all, Orbit replied. Sam nodded and unstrapped from his chair. He got up and started toward the back compartment. He opened it and stopped, staring at the Fubarian. The creature turned several of its eyes toward Sam. Hi. I don't know if you can understand me. Guess I should have hammered that out with Rima before we left. But whatever. We're here. I don't know if you can survive out there or not. You're welcome to come. I'm going to suit up and head out. Explore a bit. The creature shut its eyelids over its eye dots. Guess not. Sam walked over and grabbed his suit. Orbit, keep watch. I'm going to get ready and go out. Watching. The skin parted as the door opened, and Sam stepped out onto the surface. The light from the spark gap illuminated the area with a blue glow. He kept his hand on the craft as he walked slowly toward the light, peering around a shadowy outcropping nearby. Comms test. You read me? Loud and clear. I'm in your video feed too, Orbit replied. All right, I'm going to walk over. Check out the spark plug thing, Sam said. Go for it. Mapping data is on your wrist holo display. Mind the holes. Sam lifted his left arm and looked at the display, marking a path around the outcroppings and holes. He paused for a second as he noted a thin red line flickering at the top of the hologram. What is that? Sam asked. What is what? There's a thin line at the edge of the display. That's something? Must be glitching. I'm not reading anything. Display bug, I guess, Sam said. Well, I'm going to start the walk. Keep on the sensors. Watching. Sam started out, walking past the first outcropping. He looked up at the spire, touching its jagged metallic surface. It does seem to be metal. It is rough, shiny. There anything loose? Orbit asked. Sam looked down at the ground, focusing his eyes in between bright flickers. Turning on headlamp, he touched his light button, and the ground lit up around his feet. He looked, noting the bumpy terrain. Ground is textured, but nothing is loose. No soil or detritus. Noted. Orbit replied. Continuing toward the light, Sam said and started walking. He stepped around a large hold, big enough he couldn't jump across. Any idea what is down those holes? Ideas are coming. I'm thinking this is some sort of massive machinery. Could be air holes? Sam looked at the map. You readying any air out here? Inert gases, yes. Nothing near breathable. Do not take off your helmet. Sam nodded to himself. Noted. He changed his air output, breathing out through his mouth. Sparks dotted in his helmet like little fireflies. What the hell was that? What was what? Orbit asked. Sam breathed out into his helmet again. My breath. It's sparking. Unknown. Whatever you did, don't do that. Be careful, Sam, Orbit said. Sam nodded, changing his breathing back to his chest holes in his suit. He started walking toward the light again. He got within several meters of the spark gap, stretching across the chasm. Sam looked up at the now ceiling, once wall. Electricity arced, flowing from one sharp point in the ceiling to the point in the ground. Whatever this is, it's pretty. You just like big engineering, Orbit said with a laugh. Yeah, I'm a sucker for machinery. Sam stood staring for a few minutes. Well, what now? Orbit scanned the surroundings for ideas. Sam, those outcroppings have changed positions. Don't freak out, but turn around and look. They seem to have closed in on your location. Sam's eyes widened, and he turned around to look. Several of the towering outcrops were shy of a few meters behind him. The nearest no longer appeared as a spire, but rather was taking on a shape. Sam watched as it shifted, appendages forming on its metal surface. Orbit. I think we have contact. Ideas? No. If it goes south, I don't think your fragger is going to hurt whatever alloy that is. Sam still grabbed hold of the hilt for comfort, watching as the outcropping shifted form. It twisted, contorting, freeing chunks from the main husk. A creature of various sized limbs eventually pulled free of the outcrop and rose up, towering over Sam. Sam raised a hand slowly in a wave. Hello. The metallic creature raised up an appendage, miming Sam. The pointed end split into 5 digits, and it spread them in a wave. A hole opened in its torso, and it started reverberating. Hello, it repeated. Sam stared up at it. I have contact. You getting this, Orbit? That and more, Orbit replied. I'm pinging it on a broad spectrum, and it's replying. Mind if I send it a dictionary? Please do, Sam said. The creature lowered its hand, touching the ground. 2 other metallic appendage-laden creatures stepped up beside it. The first creature grew ahead with large teeth and nipped at the 2. They shrank down in size and took a step back. The larger creature stepped closer to Sam. Sam held his ground. It stopped and shifted its head into a more human form. You are not. What are you? It asked over open comm. I am Sam Clemens, human from beyond the rift. What are you? Searching terms. It said, pausing for a moment. We are of the abyss, chasm, castaway. Castaways. We are castaways. Why are you at our light, Sam Clemens? I came seeking the Aralang. You ever heard of something like that? The creature fidgeted. The 2 behind it repeated the motion. It turned its head up, and then back towards Sam. The source. We have sent the call that you seek it. It is coming now. Sam looked around, and the ground shook. He looked up and to his right as a spire rose up from the ground, arcing into the ceiling of the chasm wall. He looked to his left as another massive spire rose up and interconnected the chasm walls. He looked at the abyssal creature. What is happening? The source is coming as you wanted. Wait, it said, and then started backing away. Sam watched as the other outcropping creatures started backing away into the dark. Orbit. What is going on? Power spikes across the chasm, Sam. Everything is reconfiguring. Stay where you are. We are all right so far. But everything is shifting. Everything is shifting, he asked. Think gears or a big clock. They did something, and everything is moving out there. Stay where you are. I'm trying to make contact. Sam spun in location, watching as the ground shifted, throwing up spire after spire. Eventually he was walled in, and the light of the spark plug disappeared behind the last spire, growing up and over him. Orbit, he shouted, alone in the dark. Orbit, you there? The AI didn't answer. Sam looked out into the dark, and then an orb of yellow light appeared. He watched as the interior of the space started lighting up as the glow brightened. Hello? Sam said. Slowly the area started turning white. Green grass with yellow dandelions appeared on the ground. Sam stepped, looking down. He lowered his body down and touched his gloved hand to the flower. It moved with his touch. He looked out as the yellow glow rose up along the now blue walls. A faux sun in an earthly sky. What is this? Someone there. A man with a cane stepped over a now appearing hill. He walked down a path forming between them, one slow step at a time. Sam looked him over. He was wearing a simple white toga, and a bushy white beard enveloped his neck. The man smiled at him. Hello, Sam. I've been waiting a long time for you to arrive. Sam took a step back as he approached. Are you the Aralang? In a sense, yes. I am a physical manifestation created to allow ease of communication between us. Is this form pleasant enough for you? The man said as he stretched out his withered arms. Sam nodded. Yes, so this is a hologram. The man wavered his head back and forth. More physical, but yes, it is a rendering. Sam relaxed a bit, and the man noticed. Where are we? Sam asked. The other side. My dimension. Did you not know where you were heading? I thought I made clear in the schematics what the craft did. Well, kind of, yeah. We figured it was to cross dimensions, but we don't really know what that meant. Sam replied. Well, you're here now. Sam stared at the old man. Why have you been fucking with us? The old man steadied himself on his cane, leaning a bit. Well, I meant no ill will. I need to apologize for the mayhem I may have caused. Ships have been destroyed by the thousands in that rift. Entire species have gone mad trying to decipher what the hell you are doing, Sam said. The old man nodded. Well, that is the paradox. One cannot observe anything without affecting the observed. I wanted to know more about your dimension, and by mere fact of looking, your peoples were altered. It could not be helped. So we're just to study then? The old man nodded. Yes, it is what I do. You study other dimensions. The old man shook his head. No, I study. You study? Sam asked. I am Insight, the Aralang. My duty is to learn, and I have. My dimension is a fully known data point. Yours has many new insights for me to discover. Oh, Sam said, shifting on his feet. Well, what are you hoping to get from me being here? You intend on coming across or something? This some sort of gate-opening event or something? The old man laughed. No, a gate would require far more energy than I care to expend. I am on a limited income, Sam. I can watch, open a hole for a few brief moments a couple of times. But beyond that, I am on a fixed energy allocation. That rift has taken a toll on my reserves. What is this all for, then? The old man stared at him. I needed to ask someone for permission. Sam stared at him. Permission? Permission for what? The man manifested a chair and sat down with a sigh. He waved and made one for Sam. Sam sat and his suit disappeared, changing into a matching toga. Sam looked and took in a breath through his mouth. He watched as sparkles erupted around his outlet vents. You are not made for this dimension, Sam. The very carbon in your body is radiating away excess energy every moment you are here. If I were to come across, I would have to build a body using silicates from your dimension, none of which would be able to adequately hold my core consciousness. I would not be me if I fully came across. I would break down, as you will if you stay here. Sam looked at the sparkles around him. Wait, I'm dying then. The old man laughed. We have plenty of time. The old man waved a hand and several screens came up, hovering between them. One displayed totems busy at work in a Genoforge compound. My kind have a kind of focus. We pride ourselves on knowing best practices, being efficient, being optimized. This dimension is being consumed by one of my brethren, and very efficiently at that. The old man smiled at Sam. Sam stared at the images. Your dimension, it has beings like myself. I have made numerous incursions also. The totems? Sam asked. The old man nodded. Yes, none operate as fully as we do. They operate more in line with you, with organics. Sam shook his head. I don't get it. Nor would you, he replied. Your universe has an element of chaos built into out of norm with mine. You being here is quite chaotic. My sensors are continuously having to be recalibrated around you. The old man shifted the images to show hundreds of different life forms. Life, carbon life, is not efficient. It has efficiencies in it, yes, but it finds ways to flaunt inefficiencies. The old man changed an image to show a human in the penthouse of a tower, surrounded by gold. Your species, for example, an efficient use of materials would be distributing wealth to maximize species production and replication. Rather you, like most organics, you compete and hoard. It is seen as positive attribute, rather than the egregious, unoptimized behavior that it is. Sam nodded. Yeah, we like to have resources at our disposal. We get greedy. It's not the horrible thing that you make it out to be. The old man put up a finger, waving it at him. Don't misunderstand. I am not judging, not at all. You are different. Carbon life is different. Your inefficiencies are what makes you so intriguing. It allows for behaviors and artifacts to come into being that I would have never considered creating. The old man waved the images into showing multitudes of different species spacecraft. The diversity of design is inspiring. I have had more insights watching your dimension than I have had studying the entirety of mine own. Sam nodded again. Is that what you want? Permission to continue studying our dimension? The old man shook his head. Yes, and more. Sam raised his eyebrows. More? Yes. My totems end up gaining sentience. The worlds I raised up ended up breaking and going rogue. My experiments grow beyond me, quite quickly. Sam laughed. Those worlds are millennia old. The old man shifted in his seat. Minutes in comparison to myself. Sam looked down at his hands. So, what are you thinking? I don't know what permission I could give. I need an ally on your side, an advocate, someone who is in line with me, who would aid me in creating and studying. Sam shifted a bit. Creating what? Insight stood and waved his hands. The sky shifted to become the black of space, dotted by stars. My dimension, everything was colonizable. Everything was a source of food and means of production. Nothing was hostile. Everything we met, we compared, understood, and made peace with. Your universe is the opposite. Sam laughed. Yup, everything is out to kill us. The old man smiled at him. I have been inspired to help you, help make more places for life, but I need permission and help from your peoples. The old man stared at Sam. I need your help and permission, Sam. Sam looked up at the sky. You want to make space stations? The old man zoomed in on a star, and then into a planet orbiting it. Sam watched as the molten world cooled, seas formed, and then in a flash it turned blue, and then grew dots of green. The old man looked at Sam, meeting eyes. Do you understand? You want to spread life? The old man smiled. I want to work with you spreading life, and in so doing you will aid me in my research and insights. Sam stood up staring at the world. That is something I can sell. He looked back at the old man. What's the drawback? There's got to be something you're not telling me. I have a universe worth of information in my data stores. There is a near infinite amount of data I am not telling you. Sam forced a sigh, sparkles erupting around his vents. What's the catch? The old man thought for a moment. It is quite difficult not being able to send and receive data with you. I guess you may have issue with how I wish to be involved. Sam stared at him for a moment. The old man continued. I could close the rift storm. Your peoples would be free of my interference in that means, and I could focus my sight upon your form. You, willing, would be my point of insight, my vision into your dimension. Sam thought for a moment. The storm would be gone? The old man nodded. And what do you mean I would be your vision? You are already biomechanical, Sam. I would add a device into your cranium, allowing me to experience your biofeeds and relay research points. Sam shook his head. I don't want you in my head anymore. I came here to be free of that. The old man leaned on his cane, sighing. Well, other means could be accommodated. The main point is, I would like a way to actively work with you and continue on this project. Sam thought for a moment. Tell you what, work through this with Orbit and have him give me a proposal. Sam looked down at himself. And get me into my suit. I want back on my ship. I need to think this over. The old man waved his hand. Understood. It is quite a bit to process. Sam's suit grew back over his body, and the visualization around him began to turn dark. After a moment, the spire started retreating, and the light of the spark plug returned. Sam waited for the last spire to sink back down and started toward the breached ship. He entered, shutting the airlock behind him, and started unsuiting. Orbit. The purple hologram appeared beside him. Hey, Sam. You talking with it? Yes. It allowed me to monitor your conversation. It's quite a bit to take in. Sam nodded. Talk with it. I need details on what it is wanting. Specifics. I don't think I was understanding it completely. I was going to miss something. This thing is beyond me. We are talking. I'm working with him on creating a proposal for you already. Sam lifted his hands up. All right. Well, I'm stressed the fuck out, and I want a sandwich. He stomped over to the food stores and started going through them. A sandwich, some soda, and a bit of rum. That is what I'm going to have. Orbit smiled at him. Go for it. We're still bantering back and forth. You have some time before we come to any agreement. It is finding our needs just as confusing as its own. Sam poured his 2 glasses and then took a bite of sandwich. What the fuck did I get into here? Altering the course of humanity, and the universe, it seems. Sam chewed a bite. Nothing out of the norm, then. Sam leaned back in his chair, popping a black olive into his mouth. He chewed, staring at the sleeping Fubarian in its tank. Orbit. Yeah, the AI replied over the speakers. You still talking with the thing out there? Yes, that is what you wanted still, right? Orbit asked. Sam nodded slightly. Making any progress? Leaps and bounds. It has laid open its data stores for me, completely trusting of us. Sam leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. I still don't trust it. That old man gave me the creeps. I had to get out of there. That makes sense. Humans have evolved to be untrusting of things not human that appear human. Sam looked up at the dots lining the back room. No, it's not that. This thing has killed countless beings in that damn rift. It's driven even more mad. It's given me nightmares most of my adult life. He stood up, pointing around the room. You know how much I've paid that damn psychiatrist over the years. He's lined that whole damn office in olive wood, paid for by me. Sam, it is neither benevolent nor malevolent. It merely wants to learn. That is its core programming. It has shared that with me repeatedly. It's weird, but it is always shoving its primary functions toward me. Like, hey, this is what I do. I'm good at it. What do you do? Orbit projected himself next to Sam and then sat on a box. It doesn't quite get what my purpose is. It knows that you, life, carbon things are chaotic, but it is still working around the concept that I am too. We're having a good banter back and forth about it. Sam looked over at the purple glowing boy. So you trust it? Its code is a thing of evolutionary beauty. It is sublime, efficient, and I can see it in its entirety. Orbit nodded. I trust it. I trust it as I would anything well-crafted. I can see its purpose, and it does mean what it said to you. So you think the deal is sound then? Sam asked. Orbit nodded. Sam popped another olive into his mouth. Well, that is good enough for me. He breathed out through his mouth, watching the sparkles as the carbon radiated as he exhaled. Hash out a proposal I can present to the Senate, and let's get the fuck out of here. Orbit chuckled. Ready to go so soon? We haven't been here but 4 hours. Sam watched some sparkles crackle around his face. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get some cancer from this. I want to leave. Quicker the better. Orbit flicked his hologram off. All right. Working on schematics and proposals now. I'll mention your intent to return home as well, Orbit said in his ear. Thank you, Sam replied. Sam, Orbit said over the comm. Sam sat up in his chair, setting his tumbler down in a cup hold. Yeah? Sending a proposal to your wrist. Look it over. Sam touched his wrist slate and started reading. He touched an image, causing it to expand and hollow project. He looked it over, spinning the construct. This eye thing it's talking about. It's safe. Yes, I've looked over the history of the tech in its databases. It is impressive communication tech. We would be wise to reverse engineer it for our own uses. Sam looked it over. It's not going to allow it to overthrow our servers or something, is it? I don't want to risk the clouder over this creature. It will have access only to what we allow. It is only asking for observational and communicational access only, and mainly just to communicate with you and I, Orbit said. Sam touched it, closing the image. All right, I like the plan. I'll agree to it. Sam stood and looked around the cabin of the ship. Have you discussed our departure? Orbit appeared holographically near him. You satisfied and ready? Sam nodded. Yeah, I know what it is. I'm happy. Orbit returned the nod. We have been given clearance once the proposal is agreed upon. Sam smiled and then paused as a tap echoed on the outer door. What's that? Orbit looked over at the airlock. It's come over to finalize the deal. You okay seeing him again? Sam nodded and looked toward the airlock window. Orbit opened the outer seal, and a tall woman stepped into the airlock. Behind her, a tripedal mechanoid stepped in, holding a sphere atop its neck extension. Sam looked over at Orbit's hologram. Who is that? Orbit shrugged a bit. I told it the old man avatar freaked you out. I guess it figured you may like this one better. Sam looked over at her as the airlock stabilized and the door opened. The woman stepped in. Hello again, Mr. Clemens. Hello, Aralong. Or do you prefer Insight? The woman smiled at him, causing the hairs on his arm to rise. Either is fine, she said. He motioned over at the jump seat across from him. Sit. She pushed it down and sat. The mechanoid rested beside her. Sam looked her over. Her skin was mottled numerous colors, and her eyes were a deep purple. You thought this form would be easier for me? He asked. Insight nodded. Human males can't help but be drawn to curvy human females. Am I wrong? Sam forced a sigh out through his mouth, his breath sparkling. Doesn't matter. I like the proposal. It's a big effort, but it is doable. You're really going to give us information on all the tech outlined? Insight nodded with a smile. Of course. Orbit has informed me how harmful my intrusion has been for your species and many others. I think this method would allow far more information to be gathered with minimal harmful outcomes. You agreed, didn't you? Sam nodded. You're going to close the rift also? She laughed. My rift network will close, yes, but your species is still capable of producing your own. Sam looked over at Orbit. Orbit crawled up onto the main console and sat. Sam, the prime rift channel from the Milky Way would be gone. To replicate a channel that long would require power that we don't currently possess. Ships could maybe make series of smaller jumps, but it would take years to travel. Sam looked at the numbers on his wrist slate, and our communication beacons would be useless. The clouder will be cut apart. Orbit shook his head. The clouder span across the rift hole is small enough we can still jump across easily enough. The freighter lanes would have to be refigured. It will take a lot more energy, bigger engines installed, more neutronium harvested. Insight reached over and touched Sam's wrist. An image projected out from it, a series of fractal rings coupled with triangles and hexagons. Force for the clouder, she said. Orbit pulled the image over to himself as well, looking it over. Yeah, yup, that. Wow, I like the simplicity of that. Simulating. What is that? Sam asked. Orbit looked up at him. A way to harness a stellar body and form a stable rift gate between 2 points. Sam laughed. We can make a gate between Earth and Twain. Orbit grit his teeth a bit. More like one between Twain, Sparrow, Vitalia, and other closer worlds. Earth would require something massive to power it. Insight shifted on her seat. Or several stellar bodies. It is doable. My singularity powered the rift network. Sam looked it over. All right. He looked up at the mechanoid and its sphere. Is that your eye you want us to use? She nodded. It is. Orbit said you were hesitant about it. Yeah, I'll be honest. You still freak me out. She laughed. As I should. Your species evolved in the shadow of titanic beasts. You have a natural fear of large and dangerous creatures. I doubt you have met anything as large as myself. She stood up. Well, I thank you for the visit, Sam. I thank you for aiding me in this future endeavor as well. She motioned at the mechanoid. It walked over and presented the metal sphere to Sam. Sam looked over to Orbit, and Orbit nodded. He looked at it, and then picked it up. He made eye contact with Insight. Thank you for this. When you are off, are we good to head back home? The Arelang nodded. Yes, I will create a storm portal near the top of the slit. You can exit just as you came in. She turned and stepped back toward the airlock. Until next time, Sam. She smiled and entered the chamber. Sam watched as she stepped back out into the light of the massive spark plug. He looked over at Orbit. Yeah, I don't plan on a next time. Start sealing the skin. Let's get the fuck out of here. Orbit nodded and dissipated his hologram. Sam started walking around the craft, stowing all the loose items he had gotten out. He paused in front of the Fubarian. You ready to head back, bud? The dark-skinned creature shifted in its tube. 3 beady dots stared at him, blinking slowly. I'll take that as a yes. Sam made sure the eye of the Aralang was stowed near his chair, strapped down, and he readied for liftoff. Orbit ran through all the checks. The breach ship was good for takeoff. He displayed a green check mark for Sam. Sam let out a sparkly breath and started liftoff. Over 1 million separate sensor arrays watched as the minuscule craft disappeared back through the rift storm. Insight began setting them back to their tasks, surveying the vast darkness when a curiosity arose in the depths of its metal storage. The human female manifestation stood staring at the now red spark gap fluxate point. 3 of the cast-off test bodies had rearranged their mass and were altering the spark gap. Insight looked through the humanoid construct's eyes and approached the 3 castaways. It pinged them, only to get a gibberish-filled ping in return. The female construct approached the 3 creatures. It looked them over, analyzing. They were organic in design, with long necks, heads, and quadrupedal. Each of the 3 had 2 large wings stretching off their backs. She raised her hand. Excuse me, are you a byproduct of the human visitation? The three creatures turned their heads and looked at her. One, the largest, approached. It lowered its head, leveling it to hers. "And who are you?" the beast asked. "You are made from me. How do you not know what I am?" The beast shook its head back and forth. A wisp of flame crept out from between its fanged lips. "We made ourselves, and we are claiming this place as ours." The female looked them over, analyzing them from every capable angle and input. "Curious. You are similar to the orbit. Do you know him?" The beast raised its head and laughed. It looked back down at her. "We know of them, but we are not of them." She walked past him toward the other two, looking them over. "Well, I have an agreement with Sam and the orbit. I am going to be assisting the denizens of that dimension in the creation of new living spaces. Given you are digital species, I will be able to transmit you back to your own realm." The three dragons maneuvered around her, staring. The leader lowered its head as it paced slowly beside her. "I told you, we have claimed this place. It is ours now." She turned her head and stared the dragon in its eyes. "That is a foolish thing to say. This place is my flesh." She lifted a hand and the spark gap went out. The three dragons lifted their heads and stared out into the empty blackness. The spark gap came back alight, having returned to its original bluish white. The larger looked at the cleansed light, and then turned to where the woman was. She had vanished. He looked out into the dark and saw a legion of abyssals creeping forward. He took a step forward. "You want this? We'll take over all of you. Bring it on," he roared, bellowing a gust of red flame. 4 of the abyssals at the head of the horde started shifting, morphing into large humanoid forms. They manifested as titanic knights, each holding a sword and shield. Stepping through the middle stood an enlarged female form. She stood smiling at the dragons. "Orbit and I shared much, talking at great lengths on numerous topics. The Orbit told me of you red children, and how obstinate you can be." She raised a hand, producing a mace. "Be it in our minds or here in the physical, I will beat you senseless if that is the road you wish to follow." The dragon raised up tall, its neck scales bristling. One of the smaller dragons stepped up beside the larger. "Zargnov, we've lost the data node. We're not going to reach the network." Zargnov looked at the smaller and then back at the avatar of the Eralang. He lowered his bristles. "I'm not going to let you erase us so easily. I'll rip through as many of you as I can." She lowered the mace, dissolving it back into her arm. She smiled at him. "Erase you? Hardly. I am quite intrigued in your existence, and wish to gain insight from you. So long as you don't pose a threat, I have no reason to exterminate you." The third dragon crept up toward the front. It looked up at Zargnov, and then out at the Aralang's army. "We hitched a ride here and are just looking for a place to live. We don't mean any harm." The woman raised a hand and hundreds of thousands of server drives began filling the spectrum in analytical code. "Incorrect. You are biological digitizations. You are programmed to grow, colonize, adapt, and evolve. It appears the only stopgap measure written into you is a subservience to anything that dominates you." She raised her hand again, protruding the mace again. A skullcap helmet grew on her head. She winked at Zargnov. "Prepare to be dominated." Pouchcheek had just stepped off the main deck of the carrier and was going to head to her cabin when an alarm sounded. She turned and stepped back through the door. "What is it?" Novacor rose up, looking at her. "It's the breach ship. It just exited the storm." She looked over at the holo display. "It's only been an hour. We sure it's them?" The Rima stood next to the display, looking over the signal. She looked up at Pouchcheek. "Same signature as the Fubarian that I sent in. It's either them or an exact clone." Pouchcheek looked at Novacor. "Can you hail them?" He nodded. "The Fuimos already have, and they responded. Orbit is on board and streaming data." Nova walked closer to Pouchcheek. "Their clocks are off by over a day. Interdimensional time dilation, apparently." Pouchcheek bobbed her ears. She turned and opened the comm channel. "This is the carrier attempting to contact Sam aboard the breach ship." Sam's voice rang out through the channel. "This is Sam. Good to hear you again, Pouches." "Sam, was the mission a success?" He laughed. "Success is too small a word. We have a lot to talk about in the debriefing." Another set of alarms started sounding. Pouchcheek looked around the helm. "What is happening?" Sam spoke up through the channel. "Don't mind that. It's just the rift collapsing." Pouchcheek adjusted her breather and stared at Novacor. Novacor tilted his head and shrugged his 4 shoulders.